Yes, I think you can.
Okay. Is it
Yes, we can
visible
see it.
now?
Yep,
Okay.
we can see it.
Okay, so I am tasked to give the, oh, good morning, everyone. Sir, Dr. Atweh, good morning, and to
Good
all the
morning, ma'am.
participants as well. So I am tasked to give the day 4 synthesis for today. So I am Maria Leonor G. Cuarto from said IDS. So the preliminaries we have, or the preliminaries were given by the host of the research webinar workshop. And then the webinar started with an ecumenical prayer followed by the Señor San Miguel video in relevance to the celebration of the city fiesta. Synthesis of day 3 was discussed by Professor Dante Zabala of said IDS. So there were also reminders and announcements from Dr. Atweh prior to the discussion of the session, or prior to the session rather. So Dr. Bill Atweh promoted FRIENDS, or the Philippine Research in Education Networking Development Service. This is an online Facebook group which deals with education issues, advertisements about conferences, and publications. Dr. Atweh also suggested that today, participants will have a workshop on generating new research problems and teams, that is through the conduct of brainstorming of ideas through teams and groups or groups. The participants agreed with having the workshop conducted for those interested participants. Dr. Atweh also announced that there will be no scheduled consultations on Wednesday afternoon, or today, or this afternoon rather, as he will be using the time for his preparations for Thursday's event. So actually there were a lot of important points last session, so I hope this justifies the entire important points, no, but I just got the ones which are very important, but actually all Dr. Atweh discussed last time were all very important, no. So since he discussed about the major parts of the research, no, as to how we are going to conduct the research as a whole. So in research writing, we do not get good research if there is no consultation with the literature review. It is very important to conceptualize our research so it is useful and doable. In writing the proposal, there is no universal structure of proposals or conceptualizations. However, this usually consists of rationale, some literature review, specific research questions, methods and methodology, and analysis. In all types of academic writing, we do not write to inform, but we write to justify and convince. Research writing is an argument. We write to argue, justify the research questions, methods, analysis, etc. In writing the proposal, it is not enough to say that these are my questions, according to Dr. Atweh, because the area of research is a government priority. It should clearly explain why you chose those research questions rather than others. So these are the 4 main areas which we can conceptualize the research. One is rationale and literature review. 2, research questions. 3, methods and methodologies. And 4, the data analysis. Research appear in sequence, but writing them is not linear. We jump up and down in order to provide information that is consistent. Important thing is everything should be explicit, justified, and consistent all throughout. So Dr. Atweh actually discussed this repetitively, that the research or the conduct of research or even writing the research should be explicit. No, all the information stated, even the statement of the problem, the theoretical, the conceptual, everything, no, all parts in the research should be explicit. In the rationale, it is important to point out what do we know, what do we not know, and why is it important. It should demonstrate the importance of the subject or topic and why we have chosen those particular research questions. Research questions. So what is it exactly do we need to find? Writing research questions is not easy as what people think. One common problem is asking research question in the spirit of quantitative research, not in the spirit of qualitative. So there was an example given. So like these examples of questions such as what factors are involved or what the effect of these factors are. These are usually quantitative questions. Qualitative questions tend to be more general. So it's like perceptions, experience, how to do something, people's reactions, and etc. But they tend to not be stated as factors, relationships, or effects. It is not common during the process to change the research questions in quantitative research, but in qualitative research, there is flexibility in the research questions. But we have an idea of the kind of phenomena we need to investigate, but what we actually find out may not be anticipated before. So in writing the final papers, we choose research questions of that publication based on the knowledge we generate, not based on what we started with. Choose research questions with the analysis and interpretation. So in literature review, it has to cover all variables, rational theories, definitions, and empirical literatures. It is important to find out research studies about the particular study aside from theories. It should also address each factor or variable in the research question. We must look on how recent and how authoritative the literature is. Also look into where it was published. Oops, sorry. So conceptual framework is part of the conceptualization, that is to establish rational research questions consistently. Why do we need a conceptual framework? So example was given last time, like what is the effect of attitudes on achievement in second language teaching? For a novice researcher, it may look objective, standard, and non-controversial. But for experienced researchers, there are many hidden assumptions behind it that need explanation and justification. So textbook and dictionary definitions are not useful. They are general definitions, so they may or may not be reflected on the instrument we may be using. We need to be aware of the basis of that instrument for quantitative or what you are looking for qualitative. Conceptual framework, this explains either graphically or in narrative form the main things to be studied. So the key factors, concepts or variables, and the presumed relationship among them. Based on, okay, this was taken from Miles and Huberman in 1994, and how they are operationalized or measured. So conceptual framework should be informative, in particular, showing the relationships in the study. Graphic representation is not enough. There should be narrative as well based on the literatures reviewed. So it also explains how the variables are used in the research study. So Dr. Atweh pointed out that the conceptual framework is not only a diagram illustrating the procedures or stages of the research. No? And then a diagram alone is not sufficient. Different components should be meaningful. It provides a particular perspective or lens through which to examine the topic. So he made mention also about theoretical framework. So the difference, so theoretical versus conceptual framework, a theory is more developed and comprehensive. Theoretical framework must be evident in research questions and analysis is directly relevant to the research. So TF or theoretical framework is like conceptual framework, but it is much more developed, complex, and widely used. So theoretical framework should also be explicit, like any other parts of the research. Dr. Atweh pointed out that it is a pity that not many research in the Philippines use more of the contemporary theories. We need to be sure that students, including us, are exposed to those theories. Otherwise, we might miss out some important and useful theories in research. So this is very true, no? It would really be a great challenge for us all. So academic writing is difficult because it has no universal rules. It varies a lot. So in writing, it is usually less passionate and conversational style, uses formal language and usually has complex grammar and technical words, but do not overdo it. Write as if there are no facts. Don't assume things, but you are claiming something to be right by justifying. So Dr. Atweh also shared tips on how to effectively write an academic paper. Just like through this example, imagine a live audience in front. Do not assume that people are dumb or knowledgeable. Write as if you are giving a lecture. And then do not follow linear writing or logical steps. Put ideas down and then organize them. So plagiarism was also discussed. This is very widely spread around the world. Equating plagiarism with dishonesty is wrong. It is important because it is a big problem around the world. It is a legal, social problem, not only for an individual, but also for an institution. So Dr. Atweh concluded the session with asking the participants if the workshop on Wednesday and Friday will push through. Mamonera Salik suggested that there should be groupings first so that they can discuss their proposals. According to Dr. Atweh, it will come out in the workshop. Dr. Atweh will also include discussions on analysis of qualitative research, ethics, and supervision next meeting. So there were also questions sorry, excuse me. There were also questions being raised in the discussion last time. So I also just went to encoding it so that we are reminded, no? So there were several. So let me just read it. So Sir Alan Vergara asked about insights on how to structure questions if he will be using mixed research design. So that's quanti-quali type, no? Dr. Atweh answered that it depends on the knowledge that the researcher wanted to convey. To him, there might be no problems in changing the research questions, but other people may have a problem. In qualitative research, it is acceptable. Sir Victor Rosales asked Dr. Atweh to expound more about the points on the rationale, which states conceptualization that only depends on government policy is not sufficient. It must justify the specific project. Dr. Atweh clarified that he did not say that it is applicable, but he said that it is not enough. Example situation is depth focusing on contextualization. Researcher explained conceptualization, so on and so forth. Then set of research questions were stated. It is still not enough. Government policy said that contextualization is important, but researcher did not say what kind of research is important in that area. There is a need to justify why they chose the particular project and why they wanted to conduct the study. Government policy does not justify the research questions, but they justify why the research question is important overall. People tend to focus on things that may be related, but do not directly justify or inform what we are doing. So Mamonera Salik asked for clarification if it is okay to use the IPO or the input process output model in the conceptual framework. Dr. Atweh answered that it is not consistent with the definition he had given since it is defined through variables. IPO model talks about process, but the definition does not describe the process of research. He further suggested that researchers need to find a theoretical discussion of conceptual framework that matches input-output process. Not many institutions define what they understand about conceptual framework. IPO model is more of procedural. Ma'am Charity Mullig clarified if the institution has to justify its choice of the conceptual framework that it adapts. Dr. Atweh said it has to be explained. It would help if the institution explains thoroughly what they expect from the overall study. Ma'am Charity shared that she doesn't require conceptual framework in her science research classes since it is more of experimental research. She further asked if there is a need to provide or require conceptual framework in their study. Dr. Atweh said that in experimental research, there is not as many controversy as to the meaning of the factors and how it is being measured. But to identify the particular factors and the relationships between them, he thinks that it is not a bad practice. Sergio Neil Medina posted the question, Dr. Bill, I have read a book before that explicitly said that conceptual framework is for quantitative studies. My question is, does this imply that conceptual frameworks cannot be used in qualitative studies? Dr. Atweh answered that he's sensitive to the concept and reservation about conceptual framework. If the study does not have a theoretical framework, discussing a little bit about the meaning of those terms is already useful. He still thinks that conceptual framework is still needed. He further asked Sergio O'Neill for an update if there is any substitute for the conceptual framework based from the source where he got the information. Ma'am Charity asked if it is right to use a theory either as a foundation or framework in the study to make sure that all parts are consistent with what the theoretical framework says, or if we can use a theory as a way of understanding, interpreting, justifying, or explaining the findings of the study. According to Dr. Atweh, we can make use of one or more theories. It depends on how heavily reliant it is on the theory to explain the results. He expounded more on giving situational examples. I am almost done, just please bear with me. Okay, Dr. Atweh asked the participants to share their experience in writing, what helped, what they find difficult, or any problems they have encountered. Excuse me. Mom Charity shared that it gives her confidence in writing whenever she starts with a draft or outline, then arrange the ideas in her outline. Dr. Atweh suggested that distancing yourself from your write-ups and rereading it is very useful. Start with the outline, then modify or revise the outlines, which justify that writing is not linear. So another question from Ma'am Tamano, in writing research paper, should the researchers write using personal pronoun or use the third person or non-personal reference like the researchers aim to? Because that seems to be the rule in some schools. There was one professor who said we don't use first person pronoun. It can only be used by experts in research but not for novice. Dr. Atweh said that he doesn't agree with the rule. It is still appropriate to refer to yourself as I, being the owner of your own work. APA says we can do it, and we can still be very formal when we use I or we. So Ma'am Monera Salik shared that in her science subject, there is no conceptual and theoretical framework required in the conduct of the research study. But she had an experience in the social science that it is very important to have the CF and the TF. She said that she also follows an outline in drafting her write-ups. She wanted to clarify if there is really a need to include the conceptual and theoretical framework in science researches. Dr. Atweh said that what should or should not be is not universal. It varies from one institution to another, from one set of practices to another. It should be implicit in the related literature. A university can insist if they like to have one or not, and they can define them any way they like. Just make it explicit. So the perfect word for last session is explicit. Make everything explicit. So thank you very much for your attention. Sorry for taking too much time. Thank you so much.
Okay, so that was the very comprehensive synthesis given to us by Professor Leonor Cuatro. And in store for us this morning is the analysis, ethics, and supervision, which will be part of the discussion with our speakers. So let's now give the floor for the workshop and the rest of this morning session to our beloved Dr. Bill Atweh. Sir?
Thank you, thank you very much. And thank you, Ma'am Leonore in particular. That was an excellent summary of the points that you got out of the session yesterday, summarizing the discussion and so on. Thank you very much. Just to clarify something, it is always important to have a clear conceptual framework, whether it is a separate separate heading or not varies a lot from one institution to another. So the conceptual framework is always important. It could be a separate section or not, and that's the choices and there's also a slight confusion, I think, in terms of what we're doing today. Let me share my screen and what we're doing Friday. Today is just a workshop. Okay, there's no input from me. Friday, I will talk about analysis of qualitative research, ethics, and supervision. Okay, but today is just the workshop. So I hope all of us are clear, and I hope that we are here because of that. In one sense, it is optional. If you are quite confident, quite happy with your research projects, you don't want to talk about other types of research, then you may not benefit very much from today's session. But the aim of today's session is to try to get some ideas about maybe specific projects or directions of the research, and maybe start to establish some groups, research groups. I don't know, I think I mentioned that before. I'm one of those people that have never, ever done a research project alone, except my PhD. I always like to work with people. I find it very useful, where we build on each other ideas, split the task, and critique each other ideas toward better insights from the research. So I always prefer working in groups, but some people may not. They want to work on their own. That's fine. So it is a workshop, and I want to stress this, and we know the rules about workshops, and it applies more to this workshop. I don't know that silent listeners will benefit very much and will contribute much to building this idea of directions and research projects at the university. Please express your views in public here, or more importantly, in the small discussion groups. I think I'm planning to divide twice. We will see how we go in the division. The first time will be just a brainstorm of ideas, and we'll divide at random. The second division will be around specific areas that you identify and discuss them a little bit more. It's a very democratic discussion. There are no voices that are privileged over others. People expressing their own views. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to indulge your patience in about 10 minutes, just reviewing the main things we have done in the whole project. Just remind ourselves of the main topics, and then we will look at the possible research projects or directions. I started by talking about why do we do research, determining what kind of research we do. And the important ones for us are research that finds out what the situation is, what the variables are, what people believe and feel and achieve and so on, so that maybe later we can do something about it. Now, I don't want to dismiss that reason for research. Majority of research aims to do that, find out. The second one is I want to start with problems in the real world now. I want to see how do I make them better. So this is more change. And the change starts not necessarily from what the literature say. It starts with identifying real problem for teachers in their classrooms, in their schools, in the community, and in the country. So there are different ways to start thinking about research. Then I talked about the concept of socially responsible research, research that we do not for ourselves, not for the literature, but as a responsibility to other people and to society. So that kind of research will look at the needs of teachers and students as workers, as human beings, not only how do we teach algebra and how we teach spelling and how we teach critical, yeah, critical thinking even, and how do we teach this, and that. So we look at research, as the subjects of the research as human beings, as workers, as citizens, and so on. The focus of that research will be on, for both students and teachers, for powerful knowledge for both teachers and students, not only the competencies. Now, there's nothing wrong with the competencies and achievement and tests and all that kind of thing, but there are other important learnings that teachers and students can develop, and we try to aim at that in the research. Contribute to the development of children as current and future citizens. I'll talk about that in a minute. Not only education for employment, so there are different focuses that we can have in our research. Focuses on the disadvantaged, which is not, unfortunately, in my mind, not done very much in the Philippines. And then it raises ethical standards in terms of who is benefiting directly from my research and what are they benefiting. Now, there are 5 suggestions of how to choose a research question. We look at our personal interest, motivation, problems we encountered. Then we need to look at what the literature is researching, and maybe we get different ideas about that. Is it useful, and when it is useful for them? I will use this as a criteria to think about possible research projects that we will develop or we may develop. That doesn't mean the other criteria is not useful, but sometimes it is useful to look at the immediate problems in classrooms, in schools, outside schools as well. And then we want to see what characteristics of the Filipino culture and structures and policies inform our research. Now, then we talked about different paradigms that, different ways of thinking that may lead to different research projects. I identified 3, but maybe more. So from those paradigms, the traditional research usually identify certain number of variables, and I want to look at and usually choose variables and factors that are easy. That's very important in qualitative research. And and there's a limit to the number of variables that we can study, otherwise the interpretation may be very difficult. On the other hand, qualitative research try to study a phenomena holistically. We want to study a classroom with all its complexity, okay, and see how students and teachers experience that. It doesn't have to be classroom. It could be a school environment. It could be other workplace. It could be the whole of society. Now, naturally, we need to focus on particular research questions. We cannot go to a classroom and just see what we see, okay? although some research does that, but and effectively, but we need to focus what we are seeing, the research question, but we don't study the phenomena in separation into individual variables. It focuses on real context in its complexity, is always associated with practice of saying the same thing, I think, and tend to use social theories rather than individual psychological context constructs. And I may add to that, some of the qualitative research, like action research, aims at changing, not only describing or understanding. Now, action research in particular, there are different forms of it. The form that I value and adhere to is participatory action research that looks at the social context of the classroom, of the school, of policy in particular as an important factor of what so we don't look at the classroom as an island, okay? An island, the classroom is affected by school policies, by politics, by poverty, by, and so on and so forth. It is also participatory. The people involved in the practice, like the teachers, are researchers, not only providing the information. It is collaborative. I can work with people in the education department. I can talk with them, collaborate with the parents, collaborate with anybody that can contribute to changing the practice. And it's one of the main aim, not only to improve a practice, but empower the people in the practice so that they can become autonomous and agents of change themselves. And it's also critical. Was asked question why? Why not? What else can be done? It is an enemy of the standard of the status quo, because not only it wants to change disadvantage and ignorance and so on, but it wants to empower people to be agents of change as well. So it may not be popular in some circles, but I think it is useful. Now, this is what we talked about so far. 2 minutes of your time in terms of my ideas or my observations about some trends in research internationally. Now, this is not based on research. I did not sit down and analyze the research around the world, but I traveled widely and I've been to many conferences and sessions outside my immediate area, and I formed an idea of what are some of the trends, some of which I do not observe in the Philippines. Now, that doesn't mean we should do one of these, but at least to get an idea of what is the rest of the world may be doing, may open our mind to new possibilities. Okay, the first one is I sense, and several people talked about that, the last 10, 20 years, there have been a change from psychological understanding of teaching and learning, that is attitudes and achievement and all those factors that depend on the individual, what they know, what they believe, and what they feel, to more social understanding. Social theories have become important in action research. So the focus is in the interactions of people they have. The background, questions of disadvantage have become very important, more in some countries than others. And also out of school educational issues. Around the world, there are a lot of research in education are not focused on teaching and learning. That is not the only thing that education can cope with. I was discussing some of the projects of the graduate students at your university, and one of them is interested in studying domestic violence. Well, that's great. Education has a role in that as well. Okay, bullying, uh, 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 political divisions, all of these education can contribute in. So let's not think of problems of education only as curriculum and its achievement. The other trend around the world is more focus on the teacher and their knowledge and their practice and their agency and their empowerment, the metaphors of learning that they have. So the focus of the research is not only on the student. The teacher has been receiving a lot of it. If you look at books of reviews of research around the world, we call them handbooks, you will find that many more chapters are devoted on teachers now than students learning. Now, I'm not, there's still a lot of research done on student learning as well, and maybe there is still a need to do that. But the teachers as a subject of research is very important as well. Increasing focus on learning beyond achievement, high order thinking skills, critical thinking, problem-based learning, authentic tasks and assessment, citizenship. There's a whole evolving area called student voice. How can students be used to deal with social and educational problems, not as passive recipients of development, but as active participants in that? Critical social awareness, issues like the social media and fake news and bullying and all of that kind of thing have received a lot of attention as well. Different understandings of literacy and numeracy. When we use literacy and numeracy, we assume we're all talking about the same thing. And we measure it by reading, understanding, and vocabulary, and spelling, and so on. And numeracy is ability to solve equations and, basic facts and so on. But they go far beyond that. There are different understandings of those, and that's a big area in research. Some of it related to the international testing, some of it is more critical and important. Students' affective factors and action have become important. Now, when I say affective action factors, I'm not talking about attitudes and motivation as we understood them in the past. But we're talking about student identity, agency. I talked about those concepts before. They are increasing in importance. Social action, either in communities or students or teachers or schools, and student voice I already mentioned. Now, the last one is not a trend yet, although there is a lot of research on that, and I talked about it last Thursday, I think, or Friday. But I think it will be a trend in terms of flexible learning, not so much whether it's effective or not. I think that's not a very useful question, but study the students' experiences and teachers in developing. That is wrong spelling. Now, what do we know about what teachers are passing through now from their perspective? What problems did they have? How did they feel? How did they cope with the pressure? Okay, and the students will be passing through amazing changes in the concept of teaching and learning in schools and all that kind of thing. How do they cope? Now, I'm not talking only about learning, curriculum. I'm talking about overall experiences. How to make them effective, what factors, make them more effective. What are students learning other than the curriculum? And the biggest problem in my mind, if I was doing research, that's what I will be doing, is social disadvantage. We take it for granted. If somebody doesn't have access to the internet, we send them notes. Okay? What kind of society are we creating? Okay? What will be the effect of that if the current situation lasts 4 years? What kind of students are we producing in the 4 years? And what can we do about it? And what have we done about it? It's not going to be research to solve the problem once for all. But how can we target that differences in teaching modes and what is it? Okay. These are, I talked a lot. From now on, I'm be silent. Now, are there any comments or questions?
Okay, Dr. Bill is soliciting now our comments and questions. Just feel free to unmute yourself and say something.
Any comments about the areas I mentioned? Maybe you have different focus or different understanding of the trends.
Yes.
Okay, you will have chance to nominate your ideas in a minute. What I will do is this. We will divide into groups, and there are 23 participants, let's say 20. I will divide us into 3 groups. Is 3 okay? Do you want smaller groups? You tell me. You tell me. I'll divide us into groups, and it will be at random. When we divide into groups, there will be no leaders. I'm not going to assign moderators. Somebody confident and responsible will start talking, and then people will follow. So there will be no, it's completely open discussion. I want us to start thinking, what are the big social problems in the Philippines that concern you personally? So there is no right or wrong answer. What concerns you most about the problems in the Philippines? In education, outside education. Then we focus on major educational problem in the Philippines that concerns you, not the government, that concerns you personally. And then maybe you want to do something about it. What are the big problems that concern you in your classes? So we start thinking about the big problems, educational problems, and then our classes. And also, what factors or what focuses of research that you are interested in and why? So I don't want to get just a list of things. It will be a very long list, but why do you think it is important? Okay, possibly methodology, but that comes in later. Okay, so what issues out of those or out of other things that you are interested in, that you read about, whatever, what kind of things interest you? And let us identify areas more than research projects at the moment, areas of research. Now, is this very clear? Now, you need to write something about this to remember, because when we go into groups, we will not be seeing this. So, big problems in the Philippines, big problems in education in the Philippines, major concerns as we see them, as we see them. The government may have problems that don't excite me. So think about what is important for you. And then out of these, all of them, what might you want to focus on in your research? It could be action research. It could be just traditional research. It could be qualitative research, any type of research. Let us just concentrate on areas. Now, when we come back, I'll use the whiteboard to try to summarize, identify the key areas. Then, if there are obvious divisions, big problems, we will divide into groups again to look at the interests of people in that area. Okay? Hopefully, by the end of the session, we will have some ideas of what people are interested in. And hopefully, now I'll leave that to you. try to see, oh, okay, so and so is also interested in that. Let me have a chat with them and brainstorm later about details about a project. Now, I want people to respond that that is clear or that they have questions before we go on. And you can do that either in the chat or the, and I want quite a number of people say, yes, it's okay, what about this, and so forth. So I just want to be sure that the task is clear or acceptable. If somebody wants to have another suggestion, please do that. By the way, all the processes from now on are very flexible. If you want to do something else, we can do that. Okay?
So,
More people?
Dr. Bill, they are saying in the chat box, it's all right. It's very clear.
Hey, Dr. Bill.
Yes, ma'am, Nancy.
It's all right, Dr. Bill.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so there are 20, did I say 3 or 4? Maybe 4. Maybe I'll divide into 4 groups. And we'll be assigning you automatically, so you will be zapped away, and I'll try to make it, I don't know that I can set it here. I'll try to set the date, but we will have at least 20 minutes. And if you want more, I think you can send me messages that you need more time. I will be visiting the rooms intermittently just to see how you're going. Okay, so there will be 4 rooms and off you go.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Ma'am Juliet.
Yeah, I'm
Good
lost. Ay, Ma'am
morning.
Edna, Sir
Aaron.
Jill. Good morning, Ma'am Muner, Balaig.
Good morning.
Oh, wala pa ka na-unmute, Ma'am Muner. Ayun.
Good morning. Good morning,
Morning.
Balai.
Oh, so unsa daw ato answer ato? What are the big social problems?
Ang social problem karon is kaning ano jud COVID-19 which affects our educational system. That's why we are having problem with our students.
Correct.
Diba, Mama Nurse?
Yes.
Okay, the abrupt shift to online is one big problem in the educational system, not only in the tertiary but also in the basic education.
Yeah, ang pinakauna natin karon no COVID, kaning coronavirus, and then kanang mga specific nga mga problem kaning atong eskwela nga kanang availability of
Connection.
internet connection.
Oo.
Dili kayo stable lang atong mga internet.
Yes, ma'am. Nawala si Ma'am Monera. Stable ang internet.
True to life.
True to
Sir
life
Junel.
example.
So because of connectivity problem, our students cannot regularly attend classes. And to some extent, some of them are already dropping.
No.
I have some students who tend to drop schooling because of connectivity issues. They
Yeah.
cannot really attend to class regularly. And then burden sila with so much task given by the instructors. Tapos, kana lagi, they cannot accomplish things on time because of connectivity issues.
Kuan po ma'am no, generally kuan siya connected sa just sa socio-economic na status sa mga students. Kaya na-jud ko yung students na kuan sila ma'am, mag-express sila na wala daw kuno sila ipang-load, although makakonect sila on their areas, sila data connection, wala sila ipang-load tungod kay nanikamot pa ilang parents na mangita o kuan o pagpaon sa ila or something ana.
Tama jud siya.
More po siya like more siya sa ako kay mo siya ang pinakadako na isa sa mga dako na issues na interesting to me personally kay aside sa it's true for me na naglisod po ko financially sa high kay kana constrained kaayo and ako mga estudyante po
Dita ka Sir Junel?
yes ma'am
Grabe
mag-load ra ko ma'am
mag-load yun
yeah infrastructure po.
Ang economic status there is also one big factor. Although natay connectivity ang area, so for example, the student is residing in a city where naay connectivity yun, but then their economic status would not allow because the parents now don't have source of income because of pandemic. So even then, ay connectivity, pag way trabaho, still, problema jud, affected jud ang ilahang educational journey.
Yes, agree. Some murag ang atong na-discuss ma'am no kay kuan naman ang first ug ang second tong major social problems o major educational problems medyo nag-intertwine
narrow down na ta.
Ito, factors
na
of
sunod kay
research.
major concerns ko na ma'am in our own classes.
So classes na.
Classes.
So sa classes, because of economic problem and connectivity problem, so na sila difficulty in attending our classroom sessions.
Yes, ma'am.
So chances are they will find it very difficult to make submission of tasks given to them. Others decided to drop schooling. So nanadjud ko yung mga dropout statistic as of the moment. Kay nag-declare gid siya. Di kaya. Charged to economic status to iyaha, Sir Junel.
Okay.
Ang iyang issue adto is not the connectivity problem. Na siya connection but huwag trabaho iyang parents daw. So mo to affected man, di na siya ka-submit og kuan mga requirements kay di man siya ka-data.
Yeah.
Di man siya kabayad sa wifi.
Correct.
So ang kani sigurong drop out murag isa na ni siya sa mga after effect sa classroom problem.
Dayon kuan ba kanang paggrado nato ba murag dili kayo siya rational no kay dili kay nato ma-measure no
lagi naglibog pug unsay grading system nato ron
atong assessment kay kay nabay uban ma'am nga bright bitaw kay sila dayon dili sila maka-express ba kay say mawala ilang connection. Oh, dayon. Whereas kung face to face ta mo sulat ba sila. Mo karon kay wala man.
Ma'am Juliet, naghimo na ang institute og kuan kanang grading system policy nato or stick to daan lang gihapon ta? Unsay update?
Murag wala pa gyud sila ma'am.
Naaman ata sa department siya sa ano ma'am? Sa katong syllabus nato.
Syllabus. Kadto.
Point system na kanang selected lang ang murag. Unlike sa una man ba nga, usually kay ma-appeal nato ang mga formative nato, supplementary na pangpakuan sa ilang score para makuha nato mas ma-depth pa ang atong pag-measure sa ila. Karon kay more on kung unsa gyud ang ilang output.
Ana gyud.
No, ma'am, no.
So focus kita sa output lang, dili lang tanga regularly na ay mga formative assessment nga.
Yes, ma'am.
Scoring good nato sila. Dili ta ana, no?
Nasa Sir Lowell ay. Hi, Sir Lowell.
Hi, sir. Morning.
Kasi maka-input si Sir Lowell, ana.
Lagi, sir.
Master din si Sir Lowell, ani.
Classroom na daw ta.
Hello, good morning. Unsa na?
So, daw itong problema sa classroom, sir.
Ha?
Unsay problema na to sa classroom na kay na-discuss man ganina nga what are the big social problems in the Philippines? Then decide dayon diri Sir Jonel, Ma'am Edna, Ma'am Muner na because of COVID affected gid atong system, educational system. Abrupt shift to online not only in tertiary but also in basic education. So narrow down na ta karon adto na ta sa mga classes sa atong mga classrooms. Connectivity. Problema. Nana daw nag-drop out yung Ma'am Edna.
Lagi kana sa gina. Common concern gina, ma'am.
Naapod sa imo, sir?
Ma'am, pero nag-inform lang sila nga late lang sila submit. Wala mo ko nakatag deadline sa submissions.
Mao lagi na sila moingon nga, ma'am, kanang mag-consultation gani ko sa ila, mayon sila ma'am, deadline na si teacher kay di gid mo sugot, may nosan gyud ana lagi sila tingko nga. Sige lang, kanang just go on with your accomplishment sa ana nga mga task. Do not think so much of the deadline gihatag ni ma'am. Just make time nga makapass jud ka. Ako silang tinon.
Ako nakoy duration, ma'am, nakoy deadline pero wala na ko siya kuan, wala na ko siya gibutangan okay.
Wala cut off.
Wala cut off lang
kaya para to, sir.
Tolerant lang tayo.
Sir, kana din cut off sa mole, lahi day na sa deadline?
Yes.
Wala, ma'am, ang deadline mo ang due date pero kung i-cut off nimo siya, mo-close man gud to, di na siya ka-submit.
Di na pa-submit.
So dapat dili lang nako butangan og cut off kay aron makasubmit paghihapon.
Mo-mark lang lang submission og late.
Late.
Thank you ana sir kay naglibog pud ko sa akong poly ana ba inko hala kay mo reklamo na sila. Unya ako pod gusto pa ko nga i-take gyud ang ilang submission unya kay nag-set naman ko didto naglibog ko sa una.
I-disable lang to nimo, ma'am.
Di lang din ako to ilabtan ang cut off. Salamat anak sir ha.
Okay, ma'am.
So need pa itag further training ani sa muli, Ma'am Ed.
Mojud kay kanilang daan nga issue cut off og deadline. Due date. Ang ako kay ano naman di naman sila kasulod. Ako lang ginaingnan nga submit it to my email. Maglisod na pud ko kay nagtapok na didto tanan.
Lagi.
May banggod sa moli kay naal didto ba na lamp.
Lagi need di itag training pa gyud ani no katong mga detalye ba sa muli. More pa gyud.
Mga feedbacks ba while we are experiencing our moli classrooms.
Lagi. Kay
kanang video ang kay limited man lang connection so maglisod gid daw sila. So, sir, pwede ba daw ma-download ang video nga? Ako kay apprehensive sa ko ipa-download akong video kay nguban kung video nga giborrow nimo sa YouTube kailangan matag permission pud nila ba. Distribution nato may kuyawan sa distribution kami man nagikan. So Manang usahay gilimit nako akong video sa Molig, more on text resources.
Yeah.
Sir, kung
Same, sir,
magbutang bitaw ta og video pero sa Moli lang dili ta ma-charge ana.
Dili man kay for classroom use naman siya, ma'am. Acknowledge lang nimo kay naman siya kuan, naman siya metadata sa Moli. Imo lang tong ibutang sa metadata pod nimo.
Okay. Salamat, sir.
Si Ma'am Resami o si Ma'am Nur Hanifa. Good morning, mga ma'am.
Nabalhin ko diri mo, natingala ko.
Gibalhin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Unong nata. Si Ma'am Nur Hanifa. Unsa daw atong mga problema sa classrooms?
Imo na to gisulat, Ma'am Jo, katotohanan.
Nag-take notes.
Take
Si
notes
Sir
sa mga
Junel
students,
atong ipakuan, ipapresent, Sir Junel.
Ila. Sige. Ikaw ra magkuan, ma'am. Share screen. Titingnan ko kabaw.
Share
Sa
screen.
uban.
Lagi wala man ko nagkuan pod storya ra.
Storya lang, Sir Junel.
Storya, Sir Junel.
Sige, sir. Sige, sir. Alright. Sige, kuan. So, pa yung other concerns. Sa ako po na kuan, ang murag interested kay ko sa aspect sa akong classroom, kaning ko man diri o concerns in your own classes. Kuan, kanang unsay role kanang mag-establish bitaw og learning communities, kanang small learning communities sa atong kuan classes. Interesado ko on unsa siya, how it works, and kanang sa effect niya ba nga despite sa mga problems sa mga estudyante, kay how might this learning community kay makatabang sa ila. So mo po nang akong kuan, mo po na akong kaka-interesan karon. I'm trying to promote that in my classroom.
Unsa nga platform may gamit ana, sir, nga small community?
Ay kuan, sir, kanang wala ako per se nga kanang class nag-intend og platform, pero akong gi-distribute tong mga C3 nato, di ba nag C3 mata, C3, C2. So gi-distribute nako sila na
By category.
Yes, ma'am. Tapos ako silang gigrupo dayon at the beginning of the classes, kay ako gid siyang gi-establish na. Kani kay mo yung study groups, ang tawag sila study groups. Tapos kanang magtinabangay mo regardless of kanang ang atong activity kay collaborative or dili. So kinahanglan nga contact mo with each other. So like the mechanism nga akong nagamit is not very clear, pero akong intention kay alang gid sila makasturya bitaw on the duration of the course. So I'm not sure if na-learn ako recently nga naagi din na siya nga concept on literature, tawag og learning communities in distance learning. Pero dili ko kabalo sa specific, so murag interested ko to know that and how might my study groups fit in the understanding of learning communities.
Tama.
Relative to that, ako apod ang learning community nako, Sir Junel, is katong mga first year, gimerge nako with higher years. So na sila yung mga big brothers and big sisters, para these big sisters and big brothers will try to encourage them, assist them academically. Kay ang mga first year murag mislead ka kayo karon kay naglibog sila. So more or less katong mga big brothers and big sisters are available always to assist, give encouragement para sila kanang inspired lang gihapon despite this pandemic.
Sakto na, Ma'am Ed. Na-observe na ko akong kuan bitaw, third year na College of Nursing. Mag-chat sila. Magabi, mag-story sila bahin sa ilang lesson.
Maminaw man pod ko didto kay apil man ko. Support
extra
with
mile.
Extra
mile. Si Ma'am Reza o si Ma'am Nurhani wala pa ni storya.
Hi. Good morning sa tanan.
Yes.
Ang problem mo na is sa classrooms. Based on my experience, kanang maglisod ko kanang adjust or makabalo kung nabay na learn ang mga students, especially nga dili kayo stable ang connection usahay kay mawala-wala sila or manaso kuan jud siya, challenge jud siya as a teacher. Tapos kanang mag-worry po about sa ilahang mental health kay basin ma-pressure sila sa ilahang classmate nga na ay connections tapos ang uban kay kanang sa mobile data. So murag dako jud kayo nga challenge ang kaning current situation sa students, and not just only sa students but also sa teachers, kay kailangan jud ka mo prepare no the modules and also sa mga videos, tas mag-lecture pa jud ka sa online class, then activities. So murag kuan jud double effort jud siya, unlike sa katong face to face sa unang mag-effort jud ka pero at least kanang dako bitaw ang time, tapos mas makita nimo ang imuhang students. Then mas maka-assist po ka sa ilaha compare karon nga isud jud siya. So mao lang to siya, ma'am.
Ito. Sakto. Si Ma'am Nur Hanifa. Ma'am.
Good morning po.
Sa imong kuan sa classroom, ma'am?
Sa MSU Marawin po kasi ako. So, basically here po, yung mga estudyante namin sa Lanao del Sur, nahihirapan sila sa pag-connect sa internet. Kasi minsan walang ilaw for how many days. Tapos, minsan, kailangan nilang pumunta sa munisipyo para lang magka-signal.
Yes, that's true.
Sa bundok.
Tama.
And ngayon, hindi pa man kami nag-start mag-klase. So, ngayon, pina-enroll ko muna sila sa Google Classroom at saka pina-join ko muna sila sa Facebook group page namin. Ang napansin ko, lahat sila, halos most of them, active ko pag midnight. So, I'm awake up until AM. up until sunrise, yun, doon. Kasi doon malakas yung signal somehow, nagka 4G or 3G sila.
Wow.
So, yun yung pinaka-most common problems na-encounter ko ngayon so far.
Parang nocturnal na tayong lahat nito, ma'am. Damay na tayo. Grabe, no?
Talagang kailangan natin mag-adjust.
Oo. Yung magpunta talaga sa municipal hall para magkaroon ng signal.
Oo. Saka most of them po, ma'am, nag-share din po na wala silang, I mean, when it comes to yung pera, yung expenses, talagang mahal daw ang online learning.
Oo daw.
So instead na pangkain daw nila, na pang-load na lang daw nila. So they feel guilty sa kanilang mga parents. So yun lang po yung talagang pinaka-challenging sa panahon na ito, ma'am.
Grabe. So yun na. Sir Junel, ikaw mag-storya, sir, ha?
Sir Junel.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Katong imuhang learning community ba, ang imuhang group is nagi kay C1, C2, C3? Complete mo?
Ako answer, naay groups nga daghan og C2. Pero gamay ra sir kay, for example sa kong class kay naara may tulo ka, there are 3 C1 students. So like ang C1 kay na distribute pud sila. So usually the C1s are paired up with the C2 and then with a number of C2s na yun. So like there are 5 in the group. So that
at least madres atong may C1, no?
Yes, sir.
Bangan na sila.
So, sir, Dr. Bill, we can't hear you. Please unmute your mic. Yeah.
I've done it again. I don't want to interrupt. Do you need more time?
I think we're ready already, sir.
Okay, let me ask the other people and then come back to you.
Oh, padayon.
So, katong naman nocturnal pa, Ma'am Jolette.
Ma'am.
Speaking of nocturnal, kay katong ingon ni Ma'am from Marawi City, students are active during nighttime. So, kato pong other part of the globe nga mga students nato nga they cannot have it at night kay kibali daytime ulogsong man sila sa lungsod to get connection kay wala lagi sa ilang area. So itabuan ni 24/7 gyud na.
24/7. Ana gyud, ma'am, grabe gyud.
Okay, we will cater those who are nocturnal and at the same time katong mga journal pod ato pong i-cater.
Grabe gyud.
Pero asynchronous maka mo, ma'am. Ma'am,
Nag-asynchronous
nag-asynchronous ka. Unless kung synchronous ka, kailangan mo magtajud ka kung synchronous yung activities mo, magtajud ka. Pero kung asynchronous lang, pwede na mo the next day. Basta, ako yung gibutang sa kuang mauling nga, tungod sa kay, isa raman sila ka classroom good, kung tulo ka section, isa lang sila ka classroom. Pero ako sa divide by sections. Pero, kung mag-read ka silang outputs, so more than 100 students, no? Kung 40 each class, that's around 120 students. Yeah. Kung magsabi sa individual reports, 120 reports, pwede mo basahon. So ako doon nag-mention sila, give me 3 to 5 days na mag-respond sa ilang mga outputs. Dapat ang pod sila.
EdTech ba yan na imo kasagara, sir?
Assessment nito na ako, ma'am.
Assessment. Kung kaayo. Madugo na subject. Sciences.
Pero ang akong synchronous is 3 times lang ko mag-synchronous nila. Ako nag-mention sila ha. So nag-second naman ko. Last ko karong ending sa first batch.
Yeah, similar to Sir Lowell. Ang akong asynchronous kay kuan lang. Opening and closing sa module. So na ako open sa module. So sa in between ng modules kay closing o opening. So like murag processing and then introduction. So isa ra na siya karon. So like upat 4 to 5 noon akong synchronous na mga sessions.
So ready na tanong, Sir Junil na ikaw, sir, present, sir, ha, sa tuwa, sir, panalitan, ask ka.
Sige, ma'am. Nag-notes man po ko, ma'am, pero if na ako'y nalimtan, please do po, lang.
Lagi, kuha ng ta. Salamat kayo sa mga inputs. Si Sir Bill, naman siguro mo balik na to dito sa main ko, ano.
Share mo zap na balik.
Gamit kayo.
5 more minutes daw. Ako na lang i-review, ma'am and sir, ang akong notes so that
sige, sir.
Sige po. Kuan. Here goes. Sige, major social problems. Number 1 is pandemic. Number 2 kay infrastructure in terms of internet connection. And then third kay socio-economic status. So, more or less, nalumped dito ang mga major social issues na ginadiscuss everybody. Educational problems is number 1 kay assessment and evaluation. How do we know really? So, number 2 kay kanang sudden shift to distance learning, both for teacher and student experiences. So, kana siya. Related to this is that the dropouts, adjusting to workload, and teacher training sa technical aspects. So, namisgutan to siya ganiya. Dayon, major concerns sa atong classrooms na, kay relate magyapon sa educational problems, dropout, low connectivity, module workloads, mental, psychological distress, coping, and other mechanisms, learning communities, then time of engagement. Katong gingon ni ma'am na kanang 24/7 bata and all of that. So, na ako nalimtan na
community of learning, sir, na mention ba to?
Yes, ma'am, learning community.
Learning community. Sige, sir.
Ako siyang gibutang as learning community sa classroom.
Sir Janelle.
Yes, sir. Sa paidungan, sir.
Ang sa katong sa assessment lang ko gamay po input adtong sa assessment.
Gigo, sir.
I don't know kung nagamit the same ba gagamit, Sir Janelle. Ako nagamit ko og reflective journal para makita nimo ang ilaha yung learning journey ba sa bawat modules. Then ang group collaboration nila kay usually ang ako ang gigamit mangud kay sa ilang may outcome sa ilang module is group siya para
same
tabangan po matabangan po tong uban nga hinay ilang connection. Pero dito na ko makita kay supplementary assessment magud ang reflective journal. So makita nimo kung nakasubay ra pod sila sa ilang kuan. Ilang learning journey sa bawat modules.
Ano sige yung term nimo, sir? Learning journal, sir, no?
Learning journal, oo.
Okay.
Or reflective mo na siya, reflection nila ba?
Sir Junil, na-include na tong mole training more, na tong detalyado na training?
Yes, ma'am. Pero ako siyang
sige.
ibutang under teacher training for technical
teacher
aspect.
training. Sige, salamat.
Okay.
Balik na siya.
Okay. Nindot na sir ba kanang imong kuan sir reflective journals. Actually gabutang ko sa kung module pero ang reklamo nila sir kay sir kanang kung naami dili masabtan, pwede na mo isulat na wala na mo sabtan and balikan na namo later on. Nakailangan na ko sir.
Kasi akong gigamit actually ang wiki sa Molly. Ang sa wiki sa Molly, pwede rin nila balikan o kuan. Balikan na nila kung human na sila. Ngayon lang itong i-edit. Or na kay comments, pwede mo ka mag-comment dito. Nga kini siya, i-edit mo ni siya.
Wala ko kabaluan ng wiki sir ay.
Nako tutorial na sir.
Sige sir. Basin sa next batch na ko sir, ako nang i-implement para dito na lang ilang reflections.
Saan ang wiki, sir, dito sa add activities?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am. Imo lang siyang iset into individual wikis kay kung ibutang mo siya collaborative, group sila. Pero mas gwapo mo itong individual wiki kay sila ilahag yung learning.
Okay. Sige, ako nang adtuon.
Yeah, no? Pwede din na, no? Kaya ang akong reflection, sir, kanang akong mga reflection sa mga modules kay integrated siya sa integrated siya sa akong handouts. So, ang tendency kay magsulat pa sila outside. So, dili siya integrated sa LMS. So, basin cumbersome ang pag-check. Mas nindot itong wiki din. Wala ko ka-explore, anak ba eh?
Sulay, sir.
Yes, sir. I'll try that next.
Sir, kay sa forum, nagyapon ako ibutang.
Okay lang po sa forum, pero ang sa forum, manggod, usually kay, pasahin manggod kay ilaham kong learning, mas gwapo gito ma-personalize nila.
Okay, sige. Thank you.
Pwede rin po ang discussion sa forum nila. Pwede rin po ang sharing sa idea sa forum.
Yeah, oo.
Ang inyong forum is one, nagamit mo itong Q&A nga forum?
Wala pa ko kagamit sa Q&A.
Forum ra gyud. Unsa lang sa forum, sir?
Hindi na ba maset man ni ang forum, ma'am. Naman siya kuan, ma'am. Naman siya format, pwede man ka Q&A or general standard.
O katong
general pa akong nagamit, sir.
Ang Q&A, ang advantage sa Q&A, kung mag-post ka question dito, dili nila matanaw ang response sa other students unless mo-atag silang unang response. Mo-answer sila. So, isang po idea ba?
Nalagi na. Kaya ako na i-explore.
Sige, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, kadtong nakuan, sir, katong bitaw na dili na makasabit ang uban, pwede to niya ma-undo?
Saan sa ma'am?
Katong nakakuan niya ba, nabutangan niya og cut-off?
Katong cut-off, sir. I-undo na ko aron maka-post pa sila sa ilang submission.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Sige.
Check lang to, ma'am.
Unable, no?
Unable.
Salamat, sir. Nanto leave breakout room.
Leave now ka.
Salamat.
Okay, people will come who are starting to come back from the rooms. We'll just wait for a few minutes. How was the discussion in the breakup rooms?
Very interesting. Lots of ideas.
All right. I'm not sure what order it closes the rooms. Some rooms are already closed. Some are already closing. We'll just wait for a few minutes.
Yeah. Hello, Ma'am Risa. Good morning.
Hello, Ma'am. Beautiful today.
Yeah, thank you. Mom, is that Mom? Can you turn on your camera? Dr. Bill on the other day wanted to see us. So, sir, here we are, sir.
Hello. Lovely to see smiling faces.
Yeah.
Dr. Bill.
Sir Junil.
What other locations do we have here other than Iligan?
I am currently in Surigao del Sur, Dr. Bill.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
I want to make it there one day. I've never been to that part of Mindanao yet.
Yeah, they have the biggest, Dr. Bill, clam, giant clam.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love to go there, and I also
Yeah.
hear they have a lot of nice waterfalls there.
Yes, Dr. Bill. There's a number of waterfalls
Okay. We'll keep in touch. One
here
day
in
I'll
our.
make it.
Sure, Dr. Bill. I'd be happy to accommodate you po.
A little bit disappointing talking to all of you on the internet without meeting face to face, without spending some social time with you. But I trust that will come later.
Yeah.
Another time.
Mm-mm.
I think we have. Let me have a look at the breakout rooms. Okay. I think everybody is back. So what I want to do now, something I've done before, but it didn't work very well, is try to write. Now I know you cannot type on this, but I can type with all my spelling mistakes and everything. So let's see how it works. Now, yeah, who would like to start? What are some of the big, now this is not expressing your point of view only, but what the group have talked about. And it is a little bit useful to say a few words about it as well. What are some of the big social problems that bother people?
Yeah, in our group, we have Sir Junel to say about it, Dr. Bill.
Okay.
Right. So, good morning,
Good morning.
everyone. Let me just check my notes. Okay. So, Dr. Bill, would you be the one to scribble down, or ako pa yung
Yes, I
mag-type?
don't think you can type them in.
Okay. Sige po.
You can try, but I think it didn't work last time. I'm not sure how to fix it. So if you cannot type them in, I will do. But be slow in terms of what are some of the big problems.
All right. So, I attempt to try, Dr. Bill, to type. Sige. The first social problem that we discussed in our group is, um, where was that? Okay. Of course, the COVID, the pandemic. The pandemic is the first one, and then we have the internet like infrastructure availability and other related stuff. And then next would be Dr. Bill, poverty and socioeconomic, um how's that, yeah, socioeconomic status of students, financial capacity for connectivity, so data and all of that.
Okay.
The next, educational problems, Dr. Bill, if I may.
Okay, let's keep that, and then we'll come back to the others. Let's stick with the social problems.
Okay.
Now, so the poverty, as you understand it, is mainly related to the internet.
Yes, Dr. Bill, partly, and also not only with the internet, but also like sustaining themselves, in daily living.
Okay.
Sustenance also.
Okay. All right. Other groups with respect to the social problems.
Okay, hello. I'm from Group 2. And first of all, I would like to say that our list is based on what each one is a master of. Like we have psychologists in our group. So she mentioned that mental health is a major concern for her, the mental health situation in our country. And the other person is a teacher. So he said access to education. Access to education. So he basically answered the second question as well. And the other group is a teacher as well, but in the accountancy and business strand. And so she mentioned financial literacy as one social problem. And finally, I think there are two more. Yeah. The other person mentioned fake news as a social problem that affects her personally.
Not only in America.
It's prevalent here as well, especially because of social media. And finally, the other is an expert in education, and she mentioned illiteracy, specifically among minorities like tribes that exist in our society. Illiteracy among yeah.
In particular, indigenous.
Yeah, indigenous people. But I'm pretty sure we have that with the non-indigenous people as well. So
all right,
that's
some more social problems.
Yeah.
I don't know how yet somebody can help me. How do you edit something? Okay. I was trying to move things around here. I'm learning how to do this. I still have to figure out how to allow participants to type it in themselves. I think it could be my settings. Okay, thank you very much. Other groups.
Hello, Dr. Bill. For room 3, we also have identified social problems such as the pandemic, which was already mentioned by Junil, and then we also have the same problem on the mental health and also poverty mentioned in the group. And then in addition to the other problems mentioned earlier, we have identified low performance in science and math and in reading comprehension.
Okay, so should we put this as educational problem or social problems?
More of an educational problem, I think.
Can you explain a little bit what you mean by
we were able to identify this as one of the educational problems based on the data given by PISA in 2018 as a result of the PISA. It was the Philippines is unfortunately at the bottom of the countries included in the study. So we find it really a big problem for us. The low performance in reading comprehension,
right?
Also in science and math.
Yeah, great, and reading as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me select that. Now I can select it, but I cannot modify it. Read science, comma, reading, and okay. Now the reason I asked, is it educational problem, social problem, because some people might say scientific literacy and mathematical literacy, whatever, are also social problems, not so much in achievement on those tests, but how do we use science and mathematics in everyday life? But that's okay. So I wanted to understand what you are saying. Okay, that's good. Other problems that you identified at a social level? Okay. Other groups, other people?
I think scientific literacy can be a social problem as well because it is directly related to the progress of a country, I think. I don't know if...
I worry about spelling very much. So I'll just keep it this, you know what I mean. Okay.
Sir Bill,
Yeah, go on.
Sir Bill, actually we can type in the whiteboard.
Can you?
If we click the view options, there's an annotate. So if we click that, then we can type.
Try that. Try that. That'll be great.
So for example, I will try here. So I just typed
political issues. Can you explain that a little bit?
So many of the decisions that affect, let's say, the policies in education or the way we handle the pandemic crisis is governed by politics. And there's a lot of mistrust in our political leaders and a lot of corruptions.
Okay.
So
can you write corruption?
Okay.
I'm not trying to put words into your mouth.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's a big problem in the Philippines. And I don't know, what do we do about it in education? Maybe it's not educational problem, but I think it's a big problem. I hear it all the time. This is not my judgment. This is just reflection. So, yeah, okay.
Sir Bill,
yeah.
in our group about illiteracy, it's not just about IP. There are also parents. I've heard this from teachers who are teaching somewhat in the hinterlands, or not really hinterlands, but somewhere farther from the center of the cities, that there are parents who do not know how to read or who do not know how to write. So how do they help their kids if they do not know how to read, especially now that we're using modular materials in teaching? So that's also part of the illiteracy problem. So it's both a social and an educational problem.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, one of the things that we assume that, we send those modules, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what role the teacher plays in the modules and how they are structured. But more and more, they're depending on the parents. And there is inequality in parents' background. And is there a room to do something working with parents? Yeah, that's great.
In our group, Sir Bill, we also talked about inequalities, especially in terms of the resources that are available.
Okay.
Although it's a social problem, it affects the educational.
Of course.
It's also an educational problem. Like, for example, in one school that I'm working with, the teachers explained to me that the modules that they are supposed to distribute to the students were crafted by the regional office. But when these materials were sent to them, they found out that one module requires a lot of paper, but their school can only afford to print this many number of modules. So the teachers have to craft their modules, reducing, let's say, one module from the regional office is up to 32 or 36 pages. They have to limit it to 10 pages, or that's 5 sheets, because that's the only, that's what they can afford in their budget. So that's a problem. I think social problem as well as an educational.
Okay. The education department talk about contextualization that are very important. What does that mean in terms of the modules? Now, this is not being critical of the education department at all. I mean, they had to, 2 months, 3 months to prepare all of that. But what can schools do? But then again, we can look at how we can use those modules to increase the feedback to the students and interactions if they don't have internet, or what can we do with the access to the internet with those people. So we should not take these as given. It's not. They're poor. We're a poor country. maybe there are things we can do that can be subject of research as well. I know there are some universities trying to do something of that. It's really interesting. Let me talk a little bit more about that. I know some state universities are opening the possibility for people to donate gadgets or internet connectivity to the students. That is very good. But I also heard about some private schools, well-positioned private school. One would imagine many of their students already have technology, but they went to business, big business. And big business was very generous in donating. And I was pleased to read about that, but I could not help but thinking, it's interesting that big business is jumping in and helping people who overall, I'm not saying there's no disadvantage in those communities, but overall these are a little bit more advantaged.
Yeah, they can afford.
So that's an interesting phenomena here. And I mention it because social justice is my life, my bread and air that I breathe. And when I read it, I said, oh, that's interesting. So that may give idea to other people as well, tapping in many resources to try to minimize that problem or do a little bit. Okay. Sorry for the interruptions. Now that we know how to write, so can you repeat the instructions again, please? How to write on this for the audience?
Okay, you go to the top of your screens and you will see there you are viewing Bill Atweh's screen and then view options. You click the view options down arrow. There's an annotate. Click annotate, and then you can select text.
Okay. So other people, have they understood that? So now you can type on that. Okay. So other problems, educational problems?
I think, Sir Bill, regarding educational problems, you mentioned about contextualization. So I think the DepEd is doing the best with what we can afford. But I think we can do a little bit better in terms of planning. Like, for example, I think they were not able to foresee the budgetary constraints. So, like the one I mentioned about the modules, that the teachers were forced to craft their own modules because of the limitations in the budget. But these teachers claim that they are not prepared or they are not confident how to create quality modules. And then this morning I read about DepEd's plan to hire LSAs for public school teachers. So these are sort of learning teachers' assistants. So DepEd says that the school year will start this October 5, and then if they are going to hire LSAs, when are they going to train these LSAs? So I think the problem there is the decisions were not. I don't know. It just seems that they don't have enough planning. They don't have enough foresight. Knowing that we have limitations in budget, they should also consider the limitations in time.
Yeah, one problem I had with when I heard contextualization, I loved the idea. But then, and some of the work I have done could be related to contextualization, but I had a different understanding of it. I didn't even use the word contextualization. I've used other words or other concepts. So besides the budget and the time, and I want to repeat, I'm not critical of the education department, not because I'm a not afraid to be critical of anybody, but because, yes, they have to work in very difficult situations, especially in the modules that they produce now. But my long-term concern about it is, what does it actually mean? What does it actually involve? There are different ways to understand conceptualization, and which one is more useful. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So in addition to how to do it, what does it mean?
Yeah.
What are you trying to achieve and why? Okay, so we leave that as a problem in education. Okay, other problems under. Okay, somebody said dropout statistics. Yes, dropout rates are high from what I understand. What do we know about reasons? What do we know about successful ways to do that? What does it imply in terms of the system flexibility? Are there different ways to deal with that? Is an interesting problem. Now, you put that under classroom problem. Who said that? And it's okay. Why did you put it under classroom? Okay, assessment. Assessment. Who said that?
I wrote that, Sir Bill, but I think it should be written somewhere in the classroom.
Okay, so I don't know if that I can move it. No, I cannot move it.
Let me see.
No, I can move it. I can move
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Oh, God, I'm so powerful. As a host.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Now, somebody type in, okay, now let me see. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, they erased it. All right, assessment. What about assessment?
What we were talking about regarding assessment was that many of the teachers are used to creating assessments that, in my view, are not really authentic assessment. Many teachers are used to creating assessment that focus more on the content.
Okay.
And now that we are using flexible mode of learning, there are trust issues because the answers to the assessments can be found through the internet, or somebody could answer it.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, and they're not used to creating authentic assessments.
Okay. Okay. So do you want to write? Well, okay. Let's leave it as assessment as a general problem. Now, that can be a classroom, can be education. It doesn't matter where we put it. Bullying is an interesting one. It could be classroom problem. It could be educational problem. It could be social problem. I just mentioned this student, master students, who's planning something about sexual harassment, which vaguely related to bullying, slightly different. Lack of skills and training, who mentioned that?
Dr. Monira, Dr. Bill.
Okay.
I saw Dr. Monira typing it.
You mind explaining it a little bit?
Kapatid.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Because there are some teachers that have there is least knowledge of how to, for example, to manipulate the internet or the computer, or they have the lack of skills or knowledge. That is why there is a problem in the classroom. Maybe this could be a problem in the classroom, Dr. Bill, the lack of skills or training for the teachers.
Okay. So what you're saying in this context, lack of skills and training of teachers.
Dr. Bill, especially now that we are implementing the MOLE, this one, the MSU-IIT online learning environment, not all teachers are literate on this.
MOLE is what?
MSU-IIT online learning environment.
M is
It's
what?
a learning management system.
Management system.
What is M?
LMS.
Oh, yeah, okay, but MOLE, what does MOLE mean? M-O-L-E.
Meaning MSU-IIT online learning environment. That is the meaning of MOLE. M stands for MSU-IIT. O stands for online. L stands for learning the environment. Okay.
Okay.
I guess that is something to do with the flexible learning that we are having now. And many of the faculty members have a hard time in having a class through this MOLE or flexible learning through MOLE.
Okay. Online learning environment, okay. Other problems in the classroom or other categories? Financial literacy was mentioned before. Is that different from the previous focus?
Hello, good morning. I think so. One of our group members is an ABM teacher, a business and accountancy teacher, and she mentioned that it's really important for students to manage their finances, but apparently that's not the focus of most curricula.
Okay, so this is the student financial literacy.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Other issues of concern that people raise under any of these categories, except the focus of research. I'll come back to that in a minute.
Someone from our group also mentioned, although it's already included in one of the things mentioned here, that the status of literacy has deteriorated and a low comprehension in mathematics and science. Someone also mentioned that we need to assess the level of difficulty of the exams that we give to our students. Maybe it's easy for us, but you might be surprised that no one can answer your exams. So that's also mentioned in our group. So that's all. Thank you.
I wonder if the person who mentioned test difficulty can explain that a little bit. What is the problem?
Pardon, sir?
I wonder if the person who mentioned exam difficulty can explain a little bit more.
Oh, okay. Can I call on my group mate?
Yes.
I think it was Ma'am Allen. Ma'am Allen, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So can you please elaborate?
Expand on that a little bit?
There is a motion that
about the level of difficulty.
Yes. What is the problem?
Most of this time, during this time of pandemic, most of the questions that we input in the MOLE or in the specific LMS are multiple choice. However, those questions have not been assessed using what do you call that, item analysis. So there would be a problem that the students would be, for them it would be hard, but for the teacher it would be easy. So due to time constraints, all those questions have just been inputted, but there would be no item analysis has been conducted. But just what do you call that, personal assessment lang of the teacher.
Okay. So that can come under the assessment in terms of variation in the assessment, fairness of the assessment, level of difficulty. Okay. You may want to add it near the assessment as a particular problem in the assessment. So under the assessment, let me move this down here. Under the assessment, we have somebody mentioned authentic assessment. I think it has an A. Okay. And then somebody else mentioned item of S difficulty. And there are many others. Let me choose this. Here. There may be other issues in assessment as well. Okay. Any other problems that we have not discussed?
Can I add one more?
Yes, please.
One of our group members mentioned that she is in charge of sending out her students to do practice teaching, and you can imagine how hard that is to coordinate her students where she could deploy them and how she can allow her students to teach in this kind of environment. So that's
okay. So,
one of her problems.
This is right. This teaching, you mean in the context of the virus?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, of course. This is a very big difference. All right. Now, I'm sure there are more. Now, this last one could be group and could be individual. So let's see what are people interested in. Now, I want to test something in terms of the use of this whiteboard. Can you add a tick if you agree with something? For example, I can stamp something here. I can put a tick that I'm interested in it as well. Can you do that from your end?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can somebody try it? Okay. Then you can, then you can remove it. All right. So what I'm going to talk in the focus is somebody can suggest a research focus that they may be interested in, and then other people who agree with it can just add it rather than repeat it. And if they want to expand on it a little bit, then they can remove it. Oh, sorry. If they want to expand a little bit, related problem that was not mentioned, turn your microphone on and say something. Okay? All right. So what are some of the focuses that people may be interested in to start working on in a research or action research mode or whatever? How can we use research to address some of those issues? What are some of the things, specific things that people may be interested in doing? Okay, and go ahead and type under that.
Sir Bill, can you repeat the instruction? Are we supposed to write? Or we'll
Yes,
give
you can write.
the tick?
Yeah, you can write, or you want me to write, it doesn't matter. But I want to start talking about, okay, these are problems and maybe there are more. Okay, what am I interested in starting working on for research? Specific projects.
I think facilitating distance learning.
Okay, if you type that in.
Under the possible foci.
Yeah. Okay, learning community among students in distance learning. That's very good. Okay, so
Okay.
that's a specific project. If you are also interested in that, not as I like it, but I want to do something in it.
Ma'am Juliet, when you say creation, does that include facilitating?
That's actually the idea of Sir Junel Medina when he was thinking of having students discuss among themselves, collaborate in order to make the learning, what's this, situation easier. So Sir Junel has an
Yes.
experiment on this, no?
Yes, ma'am.
You do about it, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am Cha. Part of it is facilitating. What I'm interested at about community of learning or learning communities is that I recently encountered this term in one of our trainings sa UPOU, and incidentally I implemented something like that, no, something related. No, I call it study groups, and I group my students heterogeneously, and I wanna know what their experiences are, the way that study groups are facilitated, how is it supportive of their learning experience and all of that. Murag kana ang akong gusto mabaw-an, Ma'am Cha.
So it's different from the
It's
classroom. It's separate from the class.
it's part of the class, ma'am. Like in all of my classes, each of the student belongs to a certain study group that is mo na ang ilang like grupo sa whole duration of the course. That's their study group. And ang dili man good clear sa ako, ma'am, is kanang unsay theoretical outlook sa kuan kaning ginatawag nila og learning communities, and how is it different from my study groups, and these study groups kanang vice versa, like saan pa siya paghimog more effective, how do I make it more supportive for students, and so on.
Okay, so it's a required, the membership in this community, learning community is a requirement for your course.
Yes, ma'am. Basically, I assign them to a certain study group.
Okay. So I thought it's a classroom. So thank you.
No, ma'am.
Okay, other possible research areas or focuses.
Maybe the word is too broad, but I just wrote literacy.
Okay, can you explain a little bit more, like whose literacy and?
Maybe I can call on my group member, Sir J. Ruel. Maybe
Okay.
he can talk about it more better. Sir J, are you there?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Thank you.
Yes, for literacy, Dr. Bill, I think it's really, I think my focus if I want to study it, because students are low, as what mentioned a while ago, have low comprehension. And I think comprehension is a product of the family support. Low comprehension, I think, is a product of family support, low family support, or low income, socioeconomic factors, things like that. So in what I see is that I want to observe how teachers are really teaching students acquire literacy, especially in the early levels of their schooling, and whether the students are also they understand the techniques used by the teachers. I think that's it. I think it's not yet so clear to me yet, but
No. The thing about literacy, I've done a little bit of work on numeracy, so I can identify with some of the literature. There are different ways to understand it. Okay, it could, in the minds of many people, its ability to read and write and maybe comprehend. But there are many other literacies that the literature talks about, including critical literacy. So I would encourage people who are interested in that area to read widely about literacy, theoretical definitions of literacy, because there are many interpretations of them. I'm very much interested in mathematical literacy or numeracy and literacy, but maybe I have a slightly different understanding of what is really the most important in literacy. It touches on identity and social roles, politics a little bit, and so on. So wide reading on literacy and numeracy, if people are interested in it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bill.
Yeah. Okay. Deep learning, who mentioned that? We're writing on top of each other's here. Can you move what you write?
I'll try. I'll try. I'm trying to write under social inequalities.
Yeah, but you can click the select item and then double click what you typed and move it. Maybe I can do that.
Yeah, I want to write it under social inequalities because I think it's a topic under social inequalities.
Some are appearing twice. I'm not sure why. Let me try.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm very powerful.
Ma'am Cha,
You want to keep quality, get deep learning down here.
Salamat BFF, pagkagubot jud, sorry.
Okay, is that okay now?
Yeah, I'm writing it under social inequalities as a subtopic.
Yeah, that's okay. Does that look okay now to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Scaffolding student learning. Can we be a little bit, maybe we don't need to be specific at this age, but maybe I'm curious, can somebody who wrote scaffolding student learning, can they talk a little bit more?
It's my idea that just come out because we know already the problems that we encounter in this inflex learning. So how are we going to go about it? What strategies can we do to help students learn in this flexible learning? That's my point.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I think it's a very good, very topical question or focus. What I would encourage you and other people interested in that is to problematize the term learning. Learning of what? Maybe the curriculum, achievement on a test. Maybe that's the definition of learning. But maybe there are other learning that happens that is worthwhile. So what learning are we really interested in the in this focus? And people may have different.
I guess we can break it out in specific subject area, or could be in technical technical thing.
If that's what you're interested in, yeah, that's fine.
Yes, yes, Dr. Bill.
Yeah, yeah. I'm interested in learning a lot, but I don't think the function of education, in my mind, is only teaching the curriculum. To me, that is part of what I consider learning. Okay, there is the high order thinking skill, they're learning about themselves, learning about the world they live in. There's a lot of learning that is not necessarily covered by the learning outcomes or whatever we call it, competencies that are mentioned in the curriculum. Okay? So how do we define learning?
I guess we have to clearly define the learning.
Exactly.
It could be the learning in terms of the content.
Exactly.
Or maybe
skills.
Learning the skills.
Yeah.
So we have to define it clearly when we are going to have this study. So I guess we have to be very specific For example, I am teaching, practice teaching or internship. How would they learn the strategies in teaching? And that's part of their learning while they're having a practice. So that's it. So maybe we could specify, like maybe in math or in science or in reading, things like that. So we have to be very specific.
Well, yes, but even in those subjects, how are we defining learning? Is it only achievement in mathematics, achievement in science, achievement in social studies? Is that the extent of what students are learning? Or are they learning something about themselves, about the subject, about society? Students learn many things.
Yeah.
So what kind of learning are we interested in? Besides the differentiation between mathematics, science, blah, blah, blah. Are they learning about connections?
Hello, Dr. Bill.
Okay.
I feel like there's something deeper that we need to get into, but I would just like to get this out of the way because one of the members of our group mentioned something that isn't really part of normal curriculum. That is money management, and I would like to call on my group member, if it's okay, Ma'am Shine. Are you there? If you could share your research interests on financial literacy.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
In relation to that, sir, since I am more concerned with
sorry, can you speak up a little bit?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Okay. So in relation to that, sir, my concern is that money management of the students, especially the senior high school, since they are of legal age. But then, although they have a subject in business finance, it's but as I have, this is just, I guess, more on philosophy of management.
Again?
Sir?
Your sound faded again.
Oh, I guess it's because of my laptop. How about that, sir?
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So yes, sir. They have a subject actually, business finance in ABM, but then it's not really focused on money management. The discussion there is more like philosophies, and then not really practicing the money management things for the following students. And I guess for me, sir, the financial literacy, specifically money management, is very important to these students at a very at a young age, for them to know how to really save, probably invest, and then other things about money matters.
Okay. So you're thinking focusing on that subject to develop financial literacy?
Yes, sir. And then not only literacy, sir, but also they need to practice it.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's okay. Write it down as a possible focus, how to develop financial literacy students. Yeah, let me give my take on that a little bit. There is no doubt managing finance is very important for everyone. But if you are very, very poor, okay, that knowledge of managing finance is very different. Nothing is not relevant. It's very different if you are very rich.
Sir Bill, we lost you.
Investment is probably not very helpful.
Can't hear you well, Dr. Bill.
We lost your audio. Dr. Bill.
Okay, I know why, because I'm leaning down on my computer. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm saying, I problematize financial literacy because it is different to different socio-economic groups. If you're rich, if you're middle class, if you are poor, the meaning of financial literacy would be very different, and the practices. So I wonder if there is another construct here that we can add to it, which is more of the agency of people to question social inequality, to understand how financial literacy may benefit certain groups of people more than others. This is my concern about financial literacy, looking at it as a critical perspective of it. But we'll leave it at that. Evolution learning in okay, upskilling teachers and more. Now, we focus on technology and systems usually tend to be focused on how do you upload a file and how do you do a chat room and all that kind of thing. The focus is on the system itself rather than on the pedagogies behind it. Okay, so we need to think, what are we upskilling teachers in? Okay, and developing teachers' knowledge and teachers' agency. The traditional thinking about upskilling is, okay, teachers need a seminar, a professional development activity. Now that is good and that is useful, but it still makes the teacher dependent on an external expert. So in this upskilling, we need to look at what do we know about different ways in upskilling professional development of teachers that not only help them solve this problem, but make them independent and empowered to generate their own learning. Okay? So again, in that upskilling of teachers, I would encourage people to think in terms of what are the different modes of upskilling and what are the advantages and disadvantages of them, not in the short term, but also in the long term. Now, somebody wrote deep learning. Can they talk about this?
Morning, Dr. Bill. I actually came in late, so I was not able to participate in the group.
Can you speak up, please?
Okay. Deep learning, it's also in connection with deep teaching. Due to the setup now, distance learning or remote learning, we have difficulty in contacting students, but are we still able to let them learn deeply, having reflection on what they have learned, what insights, is there a shift in their learning based on the instruction? That is my focus.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's very, very useful, especially in the context of the modes of the flexible learning modes. I can understand why the education department simplified the competencies, and this is not being recorded, so I can say that I hope that they will get away with all competencies, but that's different story. But the danger in this mode of learning is that we tend to focus on the low-level learning to pass the test because everything is difficult around us. New method of teaching and students don't have access to blah, blah, blah. So there is a tendency of focusing on very low-level skills and shallow learning. Yeah, just be able to do it to pass the test. So that and the high-order thinking skill, which I added, are very important things to say, that we don't only want to teach ability to add, subtract, and solve, simple problems about mathematics, but we want deep learning of content. What does that mean? There are a lot of definitions of that. And high-order thinking skill. How do we develop those as well? So I think that is what I hear you saying about deep learning, in contrast to the learning I was referring to before, where we say scaffold student learning. Now, I don't think these are different, but we could, in that context, understand learning as just be able to demonstrate the learning competencies of the curriculum. Okay, so that's good. These are good. Okay, one last one. Well, actually, I don't want to say last one. As long as there are some, we'll consider them. Now, as well as adding new ones, if you find an area that you like to work on, add it to it. Some of you already done that, but the others can generate their own focuses or support the previous one. Now, there is this tick here that I don't know where it stands, by Neil. There's a tick hanging in. We move things around, so I don't know where this hang. The bottom of the screen, there's a tick standing by itself.
I may have just accidentally placed it there. Sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay. Or we move the text around. Now, somebody says conducting intervention programs. I think it is Monera. Ma'am, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, Dr. Bill, thank you. Because in the social problems, one that we have identified is about the mental health. So here, since we have that problem, maybe we can conduct a psychosocial counseling intervention program for the students at the same time also to the teachers if they have experienced this mental health. So that is why I put it in the list of possible problem or possible research to be conducted. Thank
so
you.
The intervention is for students or teachers?
Yeah, it could be for the students at the same time for the teachers, that those people who experience with mental health. So maybe we can conduct a psychosocial intervention program.
Okay. So that adds psychosocial counseling program for teachers and students. That's very good. That's very good. Okay. Now, the important thing here is to assist people in identifying things that they have not thought about or focus their thinking about what they want to do. There is no expectation or requirement that thou shalt work in a group. So I'm not gonna force these into groups, but give you a chance to think that maybe some other people are interested in what I am interested in, and it's worthwhile talking to them. Now, I was hoping that we can divide into groups to focus on certain problems that are very common interests. But it's difficult to do that. Let me, okay, and I need your help in finding patterns. So what are some of the patterns that we see here? I see creating learning community, facilitating discussion, engage students online discussion, to be related. The social inequality is very broad, but we mentioned problem of access, and so we can look at the experiences of certain groups of people as they go through this, or we can try to see what we can do to remedy and bridge the gap. So there are various possibilities under that as well. So it could be more action-oriented or just understanding the experiences of students or teachers as they pass through that. So I find commonalities on that. I'm trying to find other general patterns. Assisting teachers is another one. It could be through MALL. It could be through interventions. Scaffolding student learning is a little bit wide. It needs narrowing down, but it could collaborate with the group deep learning and high order thinking, in particular with the context of open learning. Financial literacy is by itself an interesting topic, and then the mental health issues. Now, are there more ticks? How do you feel working with other people?
Excuse me, Dr. Bill, what was that? How do you feel working with our...
Well, okay, we have all those projects. Some of them may be a bit more defined than others. Some of them are just general research areas, and that's okay. Now, what I'm trying to do, see if there are commonalities that people can work together on. You don't have to. You don't have to. But is there something here that you feel you would like to work with people who nominated a different area? Can you see similarities in your interest and other people's interest?
So, shall we have another breakaway room, sir?
Well,
not really. Just discuss here.
Well, I was happy to plan.
We lost your audio again, sir.
Okay. I was planning to have 3, 4, 5 big areas of interest and get people to go and talk to them. And I can see 2 areas. You may be able to see more collaboration. The areas I can see is the learning community, online discussion as possible focus. Then we have the focus on social inequality. But I cannot see other areas where people can collaborate. So if you can see other areas of this thing that we mentioned here, talk about it.
So we will talk about it here, sir, no? So others, Dr. Bill is actually soliciting our, what's this, minds.
Yes.
As to how we can merge or join together these areas into 3 big groups. So
well,
he mentioned
some groups.
Yes, or in some groups.
We don't want to have those groups to be very artificial. But if there are groups that benefit from talking to each other and maybe researching each other, that would be good. We do not have to do it here. I'm opening the floor for these and identifying individual similarities as you see them.
Dr. Oh, sorry. Ikaw na
Yes,
Satya.
I'm looking at the list without the ticks. I felt like they can be placed under the 2 trends or patterns that you mentioned. Like for example, talking about deep learning and higher order thinking skills. Can't we place it under creating learning community if the focus of the learning community is to establish or higher order? So these things can be placed under learning communities. And then the same thing, the conduct of intervention programs, this could fall under social inequalities and creating learning communities. It depends on what sort of program. Same thing with upskilling of teachers. The learning communities could be the learning communities for teachers, focusing on a certain aspect. So
yeah, that's a good.
I think the 2 things that you mentioned, the trends, I think those are enough.
Yeah, that's very good observation, Ma'am Rizalina. Thank you very much for that. However, I don't want to group them from the outside because that is my or your concept map. But that may not be reflective in the interest of those people unless they say, oh, I would like to work with that group.
Okay,
if
so
I or you or anybody else says, yeah, this is similar to this is similar to that, that gives the impression that they have to work together.
yes,
If
it's
I
like
cannot decide that from outside. Yes, you're right. Deep learning, high order thinking skill could be accomplished through discussions and things, but unless the people themselves choose discussion to do that and so on and so forth, then it will be artificial grouping.
the problem is not everybody is saying something.
That's right. That's right. And I want to
not very vocal.
against that.
We need. What about Dr. Gomez, Ma'am Riza?
Actually, I have the same line of thinking with Charity.
Yes.
That we have to lump some of this into one theme. I guess we're doing a sort of thematic thematic thing or thematic way of doing this, that we have to group some of these items into one.
Yes, I would hope there will be collaboration, but I don't think I would like to force on those people to collaborate. If I create themes, it sort of
forces
says to those people I'm thinking to force to work with other people, and I don't think this is our function. But I'm asking people, do you find your interest overlap with somebody else's interest, so that later on you can have virtual cup of coffee with them and discuss mutual interest. I want the groupings to come from the researcher.
Sir Bill?
Yes.
Don't you think it will be better for us to type in our names? So, for example...
Well, yes, you could, but if you put your cursor on the thing, you can see who wrote it.
We can't see that, sir.
Sorry?
We can't see that.
Very telescopic.
I think if you hover your cursor, then we can see it. But for instance, if I hover my cursor over the text, I can see the ones who wrote them.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay. Only if you.
All right, so we can. Okay.
Us, we cannot see
so we can. Okay, I see what you mean. Okay, I don't know how to operate this very well. So let's do it this way. Somebody typing something here. Let me just move this. So that they don't overlap. Okay, we'll do it this way. I'll call a name, I'll call a project or a title or something, and then people say, I'm interested in it, and give your name that other people listen to. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Creation of learning community among students in distance learning. Who wrote that, or who is interested in that?
That's Janelle.
Yeah, it's Janelle's idea.
Janelle's idea.
And everybody knows Janelle?
Yes, sir. We all know each other.
Yes.
And if people want to work with Janelle, send him a message later. Say, I'm interested in working with her. So I think that maybe called.
Sir Bill, we can't hear you well.
Okay. I think I'm moving back. I think that learning community can be working together with the online discussion.
Yes, sir.
Maybe. Okay. Who is interested in online classroom discussions?
I'm interested.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay, I'm interested.
Okay.
I guess we all are interested in that.
Well, what we're talking about here is not thinking it's a good project. Who is interested in researching that area?
Silence.
Okay.
Silence.
Maybe people already have research projects.
Yes, you're right.
They don't want to do anything else. That's okay. The aim of this session is to come up with new ideas for research projects that people are interested in. Now, those people who are silent, I don't want to take you out of the room, but I'd love to hear from you. What do you want to work on? Or you don't want to work on anything? That's okay. But this is a good chance to establish new ideas for research and new collaborators. If you don't want to do that, it's okay. Now, I'll repeat the question. We know Janelle is interested in the learning community.
Yeah.
2 people ticked on classroom engagement. Anybody interested in?
We lost you again, sir.
Anybody? Sorry about my connection.
Okay, sir.
I thought it was better.
Oh. So classroom engagement.
Okay. So anybody interested in working on engagement through discussion? How to improve discussion?
I think Ma'am Angie said that he wants to be.
Who?
Ma'am Angeline Dinoro. She said she wants to work with.
Please count me in, because that is still in line with the one that I have been writing. Scaffolding students learning is just the same with facilitating online classroom learning.
Right. So we have at least 3 people interested in that. You think?
I'm also interested.
Okay, so we've got 4 people. Wonderful. Now, those 4 people who are interested in the discussion, do they think that that will relate to the classroom, the community of learning?
Can't hear you again, sir.
Okay, sorry about this. I'm not sure why. My connection is not very good. Those people who are interested in the classroom discussion, are they interested to work with the person working on on community of learning community?
Yes, sir. They have actually indicated in the chat box, sir.
Okay. So here we have a group looking at community and learning and discussion. Now they may come up with 1 project or maybe 2, 3 projects and share resources and share literature. Okay, so that's wonderful. So we have 1 group. Now let's move to the social inequality. Who would like to work on that as a research focus?
Charity. Pwede all na lang, Ma'am Cha, para we will share our resources.
We can work together, so we don't have to share resources. We'll have 1 resource.
Okay, so which problem are you talking about? The social inequality or the first one?
Ma'am Rizalina said she wants to be working on both topics, the facilitating online and social inequalities.
Okay, well, okay, if you can convince the other people that this is important, that's okay. But what I heard the people about social...
Oh, no. I was just telling Ma'am Charity if you could join all so that we can share our resources.
Okay. You must be very popular, Ma'am Charity.
Yes.
There should be, so that there will be no inequality to happen.
Dr. Bill, Professor Shem Sedenyo said he's interested in social inequality.
Welcome to the group.
Yeah. Also, Cherry Henovia, social inequality.
We have 2 people working on that. Okay, so it's up to you to talk to each other about what worthwhile, review the together, and then plan it. Now, who's interested in the counseling?
Problem again with the audio, sir.
Sorry? Who is interested in the counseling or psychological support to teachers and students?
Perhaps it's the field of Professor Geraldine Go.
Okay.
Counseling.
I'm asking who is interested in their project to adopt that as their project.
Yeah, that is my field that I am.
Can you speak up?
That is my line of specialization.
Okay. The question is, are you interested in doing a project on it?
Right now, I'm into either social inequities or deep learning.
Okay, it's good to be, it's possible to be involved.
But if they are interested in asking, I am open for possible discussions.
Yes. Prof. Go said that she's into social inequity and deep learning, but she can be consulted regarding counseling, the psychosocial. Dr. Bill, we can't hear you again.
I'm not sure why. I'm keeping my distance from my computer, but I'm not sure why.
Perhaps
okay, let me. Okay, what about financial literacy? Who's interested in doing a project about that?
Who's the one who proposed the financial literacy?
Shiny? Shiny? Is it Shiny that suggested that, or?
Yeah, Ma'am Shini of IDS Entrepreneurial.
Yes, Dr. Bill.
Sige ma'am. Ma'am Shini. Who are with you, ma'am?
I'm not sure.
Would like to be with Ma'am Shini on financial literacy. Perhaps this can relate to the students' need for connectivity fees, no? They will be buying, what's this? Data, free data for their, is that in relation to that, ma'am?
It's more like money management.
Money management.
Yes.
So who will be with Ma'am Shini? Financial. Okay, si Ma'am Reza. Reza May. So, Prof. Reza May Laigan is with Ma'am Shini. Are you one, ma'am, or different person?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Kauban na pud mi sa
okay. The two of you are with IDS, Ma'am
Yes,
Shini.
Yes,
yes, ma'am.
So, do we have only two persons here, Dr. Bill?
Well, it seems so. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, some people can do a project by themselves.
Yes.
But I'm trying to see commonalities. If there are Ma'am Rebecca says she's interested in deep learning.
Yes, Ma'am Galela.
Anybody else interested in that topic? I'm interested in higher order thinking. I'm not gonna do research on that area, but they may be different. Anybody interested in deep learning?
So it was Ma'am Geraldine.
Okay, Ma'am Rebecca, you seem to, I think Ma'am Rebecca is a very important topic.
I'm interested.
I wish I was a researcher. I would be interested in that.
I'm interested in deep learning, Dr. Bill. And is it okay to connect social inequities as social emotional variables in deep learning?
If you convince Ma'am Rebecca to have that interest, there is nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
If you ask me, each one of those programs should be related to social injustice. But this is so powerful in Philippines. I hope that each one of those will take the needs of disadvantaged students into account, but I cannot impose that on them. So if you can convince Ma'am Rebecca about that, that'll be great.
Okay.
So sometimes working with other people, there's a little bit of compromise. Okay, I'm interested in that, and maybe we can compromise to find something. Now, sometimes we shouldn't compromise. Okay, so that's a process of negotiation. We're not going to make any decisions today. What we're doing today is suggesting people that may have similar interests to work together. If you like to work by yourself, if you don't want to compromise your focus, it's okay. It's okay. Now, have we covered all the topics. Now, those people who are quiet, and there's quite a number of you, I don't know how to interpret your quietness. Maybe you don't need to work with other people. Maybe you are not interested in research. I will accept that. I will accept that. But I also want to give you a chance to see where you fit. So if you have not volunteered to a group or being volunteered, this is your last chance to say what you are interested in.
Some of them, excuse me, Dr. Bill,
yes.
Some of them actually has indicated their interest in the chat box and everything
That's
is
correct.
recorded.
Okay, that's okay. So I will, that automatically is saved into my folder.
Yes.
But it may not assist all of you, so be sure you read those comments. Facilitating online discussion, you have a new volunteer. And then literacy. Literacy skills, somebody else. Online classroom discussion. Okay, well, read the comments because after today, I'm not going to be involved in many of these projects, but hopefully you will be.
Yes. Practically, Dr. Bill.
Okay. Well, those people who didn't say anything, last plea, where do you fit?
Perhaps you can create a group chat for this particular session, sir. So they might be joining in there.
Okay. On Facebook, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Facebook Messenger.
Okay. I think we achieved something. We came up with some ideas. We nominated some projects that people can start talking about.
Yes.
And I think that's as much as we can achieve. There are no fixed groups yet to divide into groups, and we're running out of time, so we're not going to divide into groups again. But you know who the people are, you know each other, so just talk to each other.
Yes.
Now, where do we go from here? I would encourage those groups to get together.
Yes.
And start looking deeply at the literature that directly answers these, but also related literature.
Yes. Actually, Dr. Bill, if I
Yes?
may excuse myself.
Sure.
Professor Rika Guarin said here in the chat room, maybe we can divide facilitating online classroom by field of specialization and under a big research on learning community. That's a great, yes. So we can have our chat group in Facebook Messenger.
Right. It's okay. Yes. It's okay to continue talking.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have any preference. That's why I didn't group these on purpose, but just ask who's interested in them. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And then people can decide what research they should do. But my strong recommendation is you start reading widely in the literature, theoretical literature to discuss these, but also empirical research that people have done. Share that literature. What I do in my research projects, I create a group chat and then a folder on Gmail, and everybody who reads something, they can maybe summarize it in the group chat and add it to the Gmail G drive so that everybody has copies of it.
Yes.
Start with the literature, read for few weeks, few months. The more you read, the better project you conceptualize.
Yes.
Then
Okay.
conceptualize and so on. Now, if you want my critical friend, I'm quite happy to do that. Obviously, I cannot do it with everybody, but certain areas I'm very interested in.
Yes.
If you're doing social inequality, I volunteer.
Okay.
Because
So,
I'm interested in that.
yes, we can also include you in that chat room, sir, no? Or
Well,
GA room.
probably not, because you know I belong to many groups. However, if you have a question, if you want feedback about some ideas, write to me individually.
Okay, sir.
Rather, apologies for doing that because I'm aware of what I have to do and but I'm quite happy to give advice, but
Yes,
not
sir.
necessarily participate in all.
That's very generous, sir.
That's okay.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Learning communities, yeah, I'm interested in that. And deep learning, I'm interested in it. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much,
That
sir.
was a good session. Now, let me try to save this. Save as PDF. And I wonder if, let me see where it has save it. Did somebody take a picture of it or?
Yes, we can take a.
Can you try to take a
yes.
picture so that you have a copy of it?
Yes, sir. No. Screenshot.
And the chat room will also be saved on my computer at the end of the meeting. Yes. So if you want a copy of that, you can do that. Oh, okay. I think that was useful. I imagined it will run like this, and it did. If you find it useful, it's up to you. There will be no chance of evaluating. And those people who remain silent, I hope you got something out of it as well.
Yeah, they actually interacted in the chat room, sir.
Okay.
Very active.
That's great.
Yeah, we are listening.
I know.
Yeah.
We are participating.
I know.
Very
I
active.
know.
Doc, thank you, Doc.
Filipinos get a bleeding nose when they have to speak in English.
Perhaps they just giving the floor to you, sir, because it's so interesting to listen to you. We get so much this morning.
Well, look, lovely. Thank you very
Yes.
much for participating.
Thank you, Doc.
The next
Good
time I see you is Friday.
Okay.
Unless you're participating in the action research.
Yes. Okay. So thank you so much, sir.
Pleasure.
So let's take our lunch now. So Sir Jeruel is celebrating under pandemic times. So we're
inviting us for lunch.
Inviting us for lunch online. Okay. So everybody,
Virtual
thank
lunch
you.
po.
Yes. So are we going to take picture now? Where's Mom Nancy?
It will be good. It will be good.
Yeah. So you
How
may
do I
turn
look?
on your cameras and then
Okay.
we'll take the picture.
I can't.
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, I can't.
You can.
More cameras, please.
I'll take the picture.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
There are two screens.
Yeah. Screen 1, screen 2.
Yes. Next screen.
Pa si Ma'am Nance.
Hey, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Nance.
Okay.
We'll see you
Thank you,
next
Dr.
session.
Bill.
Thank you.
Dr. Bill.
Have the same orange
Yeah.
color with Dr. Bill.
Yes, it's the orange day.
Yes.
So this
Okay.
concludes today's session. Thank you everyone for actively participating. And thank you, Dr. Bill. So God
Thank
bless
you.
us all. Goodbye.
Thank you, our host,
Pleasure.
Yeah,
moderator.
Thank you, Ma'am Jolette.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ma'am
Bye,
Jol.
everyone.
See you all.
Birthday, Sir
Thank you very much, Ma'am Jewel.
Thank you. Welcome.